Verse 13 says, so that my bonds in Christ are manifest in all the palace and in all other places, and many of the brethren in the Lord, waxing confident by my bonds, are much more bold to speak the word without fear. You know, it's hard to be scared of somebody calling you a name when somebody else is in prison for what they're doing. Are we not often? We are. The old IFB, they're so scared of persecution. You know, they're terrified of it. But persecution, it emboldens real men. It does. And when I see somebody, if I see somebody being imprisoned for preaching the gospel, you think I'm going to feel like a wimp and a half if I'm afraid of somebody slamming a door in my face. You ought to think about that. And so this actually caused confidence. You know, people who are in other places maybe where they're not being rounded up, they're not being thrown in prison, like, hey, what are we scared of? The Apostle Paul, he's preaching in places where he's getting thrown into prison, and we're worried about somebody just looking at us funny. We're worried about somebody calling us a cult. You know what? Forget that. Let's go knock some doors. Let's go preach the gospel to somebody. You know what? Let's go see if we can't stir some things up where we're at. Let's go see if we can't do something like that. And he says, some indeed preach Christ, even of envy and strife, and some also of goodwill. The one preach Christ of contention, not sincerely, supposing to add affliction to my bonds, but the other of love, knowing that I am set for the defense of the gospel. What then? Notwithstanding every way, whether in pretense or in truth, Christ is preached, and I therein do rejoice, yea, and will rejoice. What's he talking about here when he says some preach Christ of contention? Well, with some it's a competition. You know, there's people out there that it's all just a competition to them. And so they're kind of preaching the gospel for the wrong reason. But you know what? At the same time, hey, they're preaching the gospel. Some of them are doing it hoping to add affliction. They're like, hey, our competitor, the guy we're trying to outdo, is in prison. This is our chance. You know, now let's go see if we can build a bigger following and build a bigger church than him. And the Apostle Paul, he's just sitting in prison the whole time. He's like, you know, I'm glad they're just finally doing something. That's what he's saying. And he said, hey, no matter what, this has caused Christ to be preached. And you know what? I'm glad. And let me tell you, I've seen this firsthand. And obviously, I can't take credit for this. And I don't like to get up and talk about other people, you know, too much when I'm preaching. But, you know, you think about even just the ministry of Pastor Anderson, how it has emboldened even pathetic, lame old IFB to actually step up their game a little bit. I wonder how many churches are out there today that are still, you know, reluctantly going soul winning because they're tired of being put to shame by this crowd. Okay, now that's sad. But you know what? I'm glad they're doing something. I wonder how many people are trying to do their own soul winning marathons and actually try to do some, you know, hard preaching themselves. I've seen some people actually step up their games a little bit when it comes to speaking out against the sodomites. You know, and I think it's because they're tired of getting outdone. I think they're tired of being put to shame. And so even though guys like Pastor Anderson are hated big time, that hatred of him has actually caused others to step it up a little bit. I listened to Sluter one time preaching against our crowd and talking about how they're putting us to shame when it comes to soul winning. You know, and maybe if a few of those guys are actually preaching the right gospel, we've probably motivated some of them to get off their fat, lazy rears and go out and do something. And you know, Pastor Anderson getting banned from all these countries, has that slowed down the gospel in those countries, or does it speed it up? Persecution tends to speed these things up. And you know, even though it might, you know, make him look bad, the fact that he's banned from, I've lost track of how many countries, you know what it's done? It's caused the furtherance of the gospel. And so you know what? We rejoice in it. And even though some people, they might, you know, and I saw Baptist people rejoicing in the fact that he gets banned from these countries. And you know what? While they're a pathetic moron, you know what? Oh well, at least now, you know, some of these, you know, where's all the missionaries in these countries that he's getting banned from? You know, where are all of them? Well, you know what? Most of them are keeping their lips zipped. You know, they're not going to stick up for him. In fact, they're going to go on to criticize him. But I wonder how many of these pathetic missionaries have maybe stepped up their game a little bit too. I know missionaries in other countries that have ran in to people from Faithful Word Baptist Church in their countries out soul winning. You can't tell me that doesn't motivate them. It's like, maybe we ought to knock some doors a little more. I guarantee it makes them, whenever they're out running into these people on the streets, I guarantee you they're like, you know what, I'm glad I was at least out representing. I remember one time when I was at my dad's church in LaSalle, we ran into a guy from First Baptist in Hammond out soul winning. I don't know what he was doing there in LaSalle. But you know what? I remember when we ran into him, I was glad when this guy came to LaSalle and was out knocking doors. I'm glad he ran into people from Lighthouse Baptist Church. And you know what it did? It motivated me a little bit. I'm glad I was doing what I was doing. So do y'all see how all of this stuff, every bit of it, it's furthering the gospel. The stuff that's going on, the hatred that there is toward this movement, it's actually causing the furtherance of the gospel. These people that write articles about us, that make videos about us, all it's doing is spreading our message. It's introducing more people to what we do, and it's causing us to have a bigger impact. And even if they hate us, even if either way, what we are doing is provoking many. And so you know what? I rejoice. And I guarantee you if the old IFB starts doing soul winning marathons, they're going to call it something else. But we'll know what it really is, and we'll know where they got it. And I'm not going to criticize it when they do it. I'll rejoice. I'll be glad that they did it. And no credit needs to go to one crowd. It's all about just spreading the gospel.